Dr. El-Deiry, your paper with Dr. Cooper-Rosser was groundbreaking as one of the first that showed any sort of association between these COVID shots and increase in cancer. Can you tell us a bit more about your methodology there? I know there's a lot of different papers included in that work, and I don't want to necessarily ask you to speculate, but given the lack of in vitro work on this, what do you think might be the mechanisms that these products are actually causing cancers to start and grow in various places?
Yeah, so I'm going to start, I'll address the second part first. There is nothing that would say that these vaccines are causing cancer. It's all circumstantial evidence, but troubling, and I come at this from the perspective of a physician, which is things have happened that have been reported. In clinical research in oncology, which is my specialty, all it takes is one bad outcome, and clinical trials stop. And, I'd say it's 5 years later now, and there are nuances. I think everybody in the room, and we know this, everybody has a different risk profile, So who's at more risk? There's the epidemiologic side of it, which is, at a population level, is there more? We don't have good studies in the U.S., amazingly, and elsewhere studies have been published, and the ones that suggest a signal that we talked about have come under attack. The ones that have not, so there was a recent one in France that looked at millions of people. But, if you've had the COVID vaccine in that paper, you had less of a chance of having an accident or less of a chance of dying of suicide. How does that work exactly? And so, I am a total advocate for informed consent. I don't believe we have informed consent. In fact, as part of the work that I've done, looked into the package inserts. And I hadn't looked at it for a while, so while I was sitting there earlier this morning, I looked again. The package inserts for the approved mRNA products today basically say we haven't done any studies of carcinogenicity or male fertility, it's 5 years later, and I think we need to, you have to start somewhere. So the point of the paper was not to publish a definitive study that says COVID vaccines cause cancer. That's just not how it goes. You got to start somewhere. In some people's minds, case reports are the lowest level of evidence that you can have, but case reports are real people. But even in those real people, again, it was the temporal association, the spatial association. There's no real proof, but in terms of your question about mechanisms, there are a number of mechanisms. One of the most powerful differences between people that predispose to cancer is the status of the immune system. And one of the arguments you hear frequently as well, billions of doses have been given, we don't see any. You look at all these population studies and show me the outcomes for people who have had 4, 5, 6 shots. They're not there. And there is data that the immune system with repeated dosing switches, something called IgG4. You make more of it. I mean, there was a study, one of the papers we cite, they looked at almost 100 people who developed pancreatic cancer, and the ones that had high levels of IgG4 had much worse outcomes. And there are other mechanisms that have emerged. there's something called ribosomal frame shifting, which is these modified RNA products can actually make foreign proteins. It's something that viruses do to take full advantage of a very small genome. So they have, alternative frames. But in this case, you're making proteins that could trigger immune responses or
Other than the spike.
Oh, yeah. So there are numerous mechanisms. I won't even get into, what we observed, which is concerning about effects of the spike protein on P53 because it's preliminary, but others have also suggested effects on DNA repair. And I will just reemphasize the point. It's not so much what these products can do generically, it's also who's at risk. It's a very important point. We know cancer runs in families. Cancer is a product of genetics and environment, and we're all at different risk. And so who's at greater risk of having worse outcomes and things that relate to the immune system? I will say one other thing, it should be said. There was a paper published in the journal Nature in November that if you read that paper, it basically says if you've had a COVID mRNA vaccine, you are now much more likely to respond to cancer immunotherapy. Okay? And when I looked at that paper and read the discussion was not critical in any way for a paper published in Nature. No limitations. It was almost like this is the best thing since sliced bread. But if you read the paper, you see that the COVID mRNA vaccines alone increase a protein called PD-L1. And that's the reason if you take immunotherapy, you have better outcomes with short-term follow-ups. However, PD-L1 is how cancers evade the immune system, and it's tumor promoting. So discussions on social media pointed out, that's a good reason to combine it, and that other drugs like radiation and cisplatin also increase PD-L1. The difference is radiation and cisplatin have been known for decades as anti-tumor agents. mRNA vaccines by themselves are not anti-tumor agents. They cause changes that promote immune evasion and promote tumor progression. And so, I have issues, but in the end, I think, for future work, as long as it's done with appropriate informed consent, it's fine.
Well, thank you for mentioning the package insert as well. I was going to ask you about that. I think if people had read it and had seen that, there might have been a little bit of a different attitude at the beginning. And thank you also for mentioning the dose dependency. That was something that obviously there needs to be far more research on, especially those who kept taking boosters. For